So really good morning to you all. It's so lovely to see you all here for MLA Updates. We're heading into a fantastic panel session now where we're diving into the solutions that embrace sustainability and help to set our industry up for success overall. So sustainability is clearly hugely important to our incredible industry from a landholder and a producer perspective. We're all acutely aware of the responsibilities as a major exporter of nutrient-rich and major contributor of global food supply and food security. From a productivity perspective, we know our producers are amongst the most efficient and sustainable and productive in the world. But we know the future and the productive resilience to be will be tied to tackling climate variability and tapping into market opportunities by meeting sustainability commitments and demands of our customers. So all of that is particularly what our panel is going to pick apart today. What does it mean to be sustainable? And that is a question that I really encourage everyone in the audience today to be thinking about from your own perspective. The panel will cover elements of why becoming sustainable as an industry is a really important priority for us. And as a producer, what are the things that you need to be thinking about and covering? Where's the relevant R&D that you might be able to tap into that will help address the critical priorities that are on our doorstep? So let's get into it. We'll start with our panellists just doing a bit more of an introduction of themselves and why sustainability is important for them in their businesses. And we'll start with you, Jack.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. Thanks, everyone. Yes, I'm Jack Holden. I'm an MLA director. My day job, if you like, is with Fonterra, and Holly thankfully profiled what Fonterra's sort of sustainability journey looks like. I've been with Fonterra about 12 years now, and a 25-year sort of history in sustainability, and particularly in food sustainability, in consulting, and the Victorian government prior to that.
Thanks, Jack. Ian.
Yeah, I'm a beef producer from northwest Tassie in the high rainfall region down there. Breeding, buying in, and then grass finishing everything into high value beef markets. And I also work with some other businesses. I run my own small agronomy consulting business, as well as I direct two other farm businesses within Tasmania as well. They're sort of broader scale beef and sheep breeding businesses, as well as some agroforestry.
Thanks, Ian. Tom Bull.
Yeah, I'm General Manager of LambPro. In essence, we're a genetics business. We sell rams to 400 businesses, collectively producing over 1 million lambs. We're also involved in a number of joint ventures, exporting lamb to 8 countries around the world.
Thanks, Tom. And Sarah.
Thanks, Jane. Well, my job at MLA is to take the research outcomes that are coming out of areas like eating quality, genetics, and on-farm productivity, and turn them into solutions and products to get them in the hands of producers as quickly as possible.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. All right, so the way we'll roll for this particular panel session is I'll just run through a few questions to get the conversation going, and then we will hand some mics around in case there's some questions out there in the audience that you'd like to go through. So, Jack, first to you, what are you seeing as the major external sustainability drivers that are impacting on agriculture and the livestock industry? And in particular, what are some of the sustainability topics that are really front of mind?
Yeah, thanks, Jane. I mean, it's been already profiled well this morning, the sort of customer appetite and investor appetite to see sustainability performance. I think there is an increasing awareness of, well, this can't come at a cost to farmers, right? These things have to be win-wins, right? So they have to go together. The underlying profitability of individual properties, and also as the industry as a whole, is now part of the prerequisites. It's not a trade-off anymore, right? We have to get those lined up, and I think there's an awareness of that. So what are the win-wins? What are the ones we can do that greenhouse gas solutions that drive profitability in the short term and set us up to invest in the longer term things that are perhaps solutions, but not economic solutions just yet, and how do we make them economic in a timescale that works for us and works for the customers in a sort of commercially scalable sort of version of that. I think that's a really important bit. We do see, and we heard a little bit before about regenerative agriculture, and I think there is an opportunity that could become a point of difference for Australian agriculture, or it could become a point of confusion. And I think we're at that inflection point now, and we have to really sort of lean into that discussion about what does that mean. There's some really good natural advantages in Australian agriculture that are not repeated in our export competitors in Northern America or Europe, and that's part of our story, and we probably have to enhance that in a way that makes sense to a broader audience, not to a really niche audience, I think. And I suppose that the final thing is just go back to those win-wins, right? So it's that will provide the capital and the impetus for us to go faster in that process, because the appetite to go faster externally is just continuing to increase.
Yeah, fantastic. So Tom, how does sustainability feature in your business, and what do you see as the big market drivers and opportunities?
I look at sustainability. I mean, I love my farm, our farm, and I love our industry. So how can we continue to do the two things I love, being farming and being lamb production, into the future? From a farm standpoint, obviously carbon neutrality and a lot of benchmarking. I see the big catalyst for change. I see the sustainability debate where the sheep industry was 20 years ago as a subjective debate. Now for us it's about bringing objectivity, understanding the metrics, understanding what's important and getting the key skills. The other part of sustainability as a farmer is the financial component, but I'd probably say the biggest challenge for the sheep sustainability is people. ABARE pegged our average sheep producer in 2000 at 50. That's gone to 64 years of age. We're rapidly increasing our age, and we've got to make sheep production sexy. We've got to bring the youth through, and to do that, we've got to change the industry. And I see that human component for the sheep industry as the biggest threat, but also the biggest opportunity.
Great, thanks Tom. So Ian, you're live in an absolutely incredibly beautiful part of the world. There's a number of supply chains that have accreditation programs now set up so that they can enhance their brand and access particular markets. So you're accredited with the Greenham, Never Ever, the GAP and the sustainability programs that they have there. So how have you implemented these into your business, and what are the benefits to that?
I guess to begin with, the Never Ever and the GAP, they're really based around animal welfare, which aligned really well with us as producers and our neighbours, obviously, what they're already doing and building on that. And then the sustainability standard has really been sort of that next step up towards full farm sustainability. So it has different aspects which includes some more animal welfare, includes a lot around the people side of things, as Tom's talking about there, which is also something that is really important one to get. It's got really good environmental parts to it as well, and I think the way it's incorporated with our business has been that it's been really complementary to our business, because we're being able to use it to prove what we were already doing and how sustainable we already are. Like, similar to Tom, we're there for the absolute long haul. I'm third generation, and I hope there's many, many, many more generations there. So we were already focused on sustainable productivity from day dot. So even to the point of being classified regenerative for our practices, because that's what we're doing. We're making sure we're looking after and enhancing our asset. But I think what it's done in particularly in the people one and in some of the environmental ones, it's given us the opportunity to step up, particularly around our record keeping. So it's not necessarily difficult steps, but it's important steps, and it's real impetus for us as producers to go and say, I've been doing this, but I really need some sort of document around people management, or document around threatened species protection, or whatever it might be. And I mean, working with Greenhams to help develop the program, we've seen them develop really good templates to help us as producers produce those reports. So it's not difficult, but it's great impetus, I think, to step up and really show what we have been doing and how much better we can do things. Yeah.
And Ian, were you part of developing up that program? Yeah,
there was a producer reference group that helped develop that program to really make sure that it was practical and useful for producers, and we were able to push things out and mould things, change things to make sure that it was really effective to what it wanted to be. So that was a really important part of it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So there's certainly a lot of research and development that's been completed and ongoing to underpin a lot of the requirements that Ian has covered there. So Sarah, tell us about some of the big MLA sustainability investments and projects and how they're progressing at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Jane. So you're right. So since 2017, and we've had this CN30 goal in mind, we've put in, it's now over $140 million of investments in projects, research projects that are specifically looking at what are new and different ways, there might be new technologies that can be accelerating our path to get to that CN30 goal. Now, what's really pleasing is that most of that investment is actually in partnership with other commercial companies or other research organisations who also have energy around this goal and want to partner with us on that. And we've broken that down into how are we going to achieve that? We've broken that down into, how do we reduce emissions? And then how do we increase carbon storage to get to that final net zero position? And then importantly, and where my team has a role to play, is how do we get anything that comes from research into the hands of producers as quickly as possible and support producers making some change? Now, one of the projects I'll call out specifically that I'm pretty excited about is what we're doing in genetics. And so we've been collecting for a long time now on some really well-recorded animals. For example, the resource flock, where there's 2,000 lambs being genotyped every year on things like carcass quality, reproductive traits, productivity traits. And for the first time, we're now collecting their methane emissions and their feed efficiencies. And this is going to create the world first data set that connects all of these traits together. And we will be able to produce breeding values where producers can actually make selection decisions in their breeding programs on how to reduce methane emissions through that selection, whilst also maintaining productivity. And so that's going to be that is super exciting. And right behind me in this curtain is, so make sure you see that today, is there are sheep and cattle out there, and also the machines that we're using to measure those methane emissions. Some really exciting stuff there. But we don't have to wait until those breeding values are ready. So I think that's a key message for me, is we don't have to wait until new technology comes. We can get started right now. We have over 25 years worth of research that has validated that we can make productivity gains with our feed base and with genetics already. So we can really get started and making a difference right now. And then so my call to action today too would be to get to the Sustainability Hub, because the carbon calculator that Jason referenced before has only been newly released. And if you do nothing else, is that get online and be able to see what is the data that you need to collect to create a carbon account. Because that's really important to know what information do you need. But then that gives you the opportunity to go, well, what if I do something different on my farm? What will that do to my carbon status as well? So I think that'd be a really important step to take out of today too, Jane.
Yeah, that's great, Sarah. And what other sort of opportunities are there sort of around the carbon digital calculator that producers could get involved in to basically learn a lot more about how it all works and how they can impact on their business?
Yeah, good point. So we don't just leave you hanging with a carbon calculator and some numbers, because from that step, so today is a great awareness activity that everyone's getting involved in, and the carbon calculator is going to be a tool that you can get your hands on today. But the next step would be to think about, well, if I really want to understand how to do something different on farm, we've got some programs that we're piloting in Victoria in just 2 weeks' time, called the Carbon Edge Workshop. So 2-day workshops to get a little bit more in detail of what would you do on farm. Now, the clinch pin to this being successful is it's producers helping producers learn from each other, and that's where we're seeing the biggest success, Jane, on any adoption of any change on farm, is that when we're getting producer groups to form, like-minded producers who really want to test something out with other producers, it de-risks a little bit to do it as a producer group. And we've got lots of options that MLA supports producers in doing that, and you'll be able to pick up some resources today that show that the dollar return in actually getting involved in some of those things is pretty rewarding as well.
Fantastic. Thanks, Sarah. So, Tom, you're an early adopter of a lot of R&D that's come out of MLA and other areas, particularly genetics and different technologies. So what have been the most important sustainability investments that you've made?
I think a lot of the sustainability investments go hand in hand with productivity. A lot of genetic improvement, improving growth rates, reproduction goes hand in hand. So really, so much of reducing our footprint, it goes hand in hand with reducing our cost of production. So I see so much of our work, simultaneously improving the environment, and it's just a continuum. Reducing days to kill, fertility. There's no doubt ewes that carry 2 lambs compared to 1 lamb have a huge impact on our carbon story. I think there's a lot of opportunities in that. So yeah, that's ongoing, and you know, genomics and a lot of the other technologies just to allow to accelerate that.
That's great. And do you think we're moving fast enough with it all?
Yeah, I think we'd like to see an increase in our genetics budget. You know, I do think genetics offers so many solutions to so many of our answers, whether it be consumer, whether it be sustainability. So it's a continuum. We've got to improve. We've certainly got to improve genetic gain a lot. You know, cost of production needs to come down, particularly in these times. And also, you know, our carbon footprint simultaneously needs to improve as well. So yeah, it's just a continuum.
Yeah, fantastic. So there's plenty of clear examples there of how our producers in particular are responding to the drivers and the market requirements. But more broadly, Jack, how do you think Australian agriculture and the livestock industry is responding to the drivers?
I think, I mean, we could always do more, right? There's never enough. I think we've got some natural advantages that we should make more of, right? And particularly in world markets around the place, that we could be have a much more compelling story. So I think it's about being open and honest and transparent with our customers and other stakeholders. And I think that authentic voice is actually what will get us closer, and therefore what will build trust and enduring relationships, rather than just sort of what's the magic number, right? It's a deeper relationship build than that we need. And I think we need to remember that our customers are not countries, right? So within every country, there is a customer that will value this more highly than some other. So get in there and think of these markets as literally individual consumers and work out from there, rather than saying, what's the story for Europe or China or something like that. I just want to go back to people for a minute too. And I just think one of the big drivers that we've had to date, and we heard about investors and customers, but I think the people who work in our businesses are also now emerged as probably the biggest single driver of why I need to have a sustainability story that makes sense, right? So people believe in the organisations that they're working for, whether they're really small scale or really large scale. That's now a very compelling part of the war for talent, and a very compelling part of why some of our sort of leading farmers in, you know, some of the Fonterra trials is what gets them up and does something a little bit more adventurous. Is that it's for the people who work in their businesses. It helps them engage and helps them, you know, believe in not just the operation there, but the whole industry and the whole, you know, working in livestock situation. That's a really important reason to believe. And I think, you know, you guys highlighted the people gap, and this is part of fixing that gap or closing that gap.
Yeah, fantastic. So Tom and Ian, do you think it's worth it? So in terms of the return you receive by addressing the market drivers and focusing on sustainability in your businesses, are the benefits really that strong? So Ian, first to you, is the cost versus the benefit there?
Well, yeah, for me, that's such a broad spectrum thing. But for me, I guess going back to what sustainability is for me, sustainability is productive, profitable, sustainable businesses rather than necessarily planting trees. Is an easy way to think about sustainability, and particularly from the area of the country that I'm from, we don't have that 10% of poor country we can put into trees or anything like that. We've got highly productive land in our area. There's plenty of farms that shouldn't be planting trees. It'd be, you know, irresponsible when there's so much food that needs to be produced. I think that what I said earlier about the opportunity to lift farmers up, do things better, record better, all those sort of things is a huge payoff for something like this as well. And then obviously you've got financial premiums that come with these things, whether or not those last, in terms of whether it just becomes a market access necessity or a requirement. At the moment there's a premium there. It isn't a huge premium, but it's a premium to try and move this thing forward. But I think the cost that I've put in for my particular business was time, but it was so much learning that any financial benefit is negligible compared to the learning and then the market access and being able to go forward.
That's great. What about you, Tom?
If you actually take a step back, the lamb industry is a genuine commodity, and few would argue against that in the current environment. We're seeing, you know, most processors and retailers just vacuum lambs up, stand side by side in the sale yards and put those lambs in boxes. So the simple cold hard light of day, does the environment have any value at the moment? No. But I think that's because of our structures are broken. You can be carbon neutral, you can produce the best eating quality lamb in the world, and it's going to get paid $5 a kilo, the same as Joe Bloggs, who does a terrible job of the environment and does nothing for eating quality. So really, our business was about trying to get the structure. You know, how can we get to a retailer? How can we implement control points in genetics, feed? How can we implement animal welfare accreditation? And now how can we overlay environmental accreditation on that? And unfortunately in Australia there isn't many opportunities, but globally we're seeing a huge appetite for combining, you know, that triple tier of eating quality, environment and animal welfare. So do I see it valuable? Highly valuable. Do I see the issues of the industry as a major issue? I see it as an opportunity. I can't see a lot of the industry changing. So at the end of the day, I think we're going to change our business structures and actually capture that value and get more direct to the consumer, as opposed to dumping our lambs in Bendigo on Monday and hoping the 2 seconds a processor or retailer has to buy them, we create value. So yeah, twofold answer, huge opportunity. In the current environment, it's very hard to see any value.
Thanks, Tom. It's fantastic. All right, so questions. We've got a couple of mics that are here. So if you've got a question for any of the panellists, please put your hand up and the microphone will come to you. Give us your name, where you're from, and then who your question is for. I can't see because the lights are far too bright. There's one there, and then there's one here. Thank you.
Hello, Brendan Marnie. I'm a farmer from over at Merrijig, and I've listened here to all these guys today about the weather and what's going on, and none of them have indicated at all what the stopping of the live sheep trade is doing out of Western Australia. How many sheep have been sold out of Western Australia this year compared to 2019? And sustainability. I'll just quote, we can handle fire, floods and drought, but we can't handle a Labor government. Where do you guys sit on that, and where the live sheep trade is at the moment?
That's a fairly curly question, and I'm not sure that any of our panellists are probably really well set up to be answering that, unless there's anyone who wants to have a go at it.
So a couple of things, and absolutely not copping out of it, but we can't do anything about policy. MLA is not allowed to do that. The representative bodies are here, just not far behind us. It'd be worthwhile having a chat to them. But what we do have to be conscious of is what are the market drivers and challenges for the industry, and what can we do to actually help with that. So if there, for example, is a change to the available market channels, like live export, for example, what can we do to help support the industry? So how can we help the producers with the production systems to point those animals to a different market, for example, or how can we support the information that helps them make those decisions? So I know that's not the sort of answer that you're looking for, but we are absolutely restricted in what we can do. And I think what someone like MLA has to do as well is work within the environment that we're presented with, and whether that be a political or weather conditions, we've got to try and focus on and work on the things that best support the industry and help us medium and long term. And sometimes we're presented with things like the live export discussions, which make that really, really hard. But we're absolutely happy to pick the conversation up later on as well.
David, I think we've just got one down here. Oh, sorry, Brad.
Sorry, thank you very much. My name is Donald Coles from the Context Network of Consultants. I'm also a beef farmer. Bill hit the nail on the head here earlier when he talked about how can he have his value that he's adding for doing something about carbon sequestration and reducing emissions recognised not just by retailers, in fact by consumers as a commercial driver. So my question would be, what is the role in traceability here? Is it Does any of the panel see this as important? And if so, what technology is missing in order to enable a better system of traceability all the way through to retailer?
So, Tom, would you like to see that?
I think it has a role, and certainly there are new technologies coming online all the time. Obviously, you know, we're big fans of electronic identification in sheep. We think it has a huge role to play, and certainly investing our systems around that. You know, we're also looking at some of the DNA opportunities as well. You know, given we do have very good DNA profiles on all the RAMs that people are using, so probably not the best person to answer that question accurately, but just getting the basics right with electronic tags and getting the integrity of that is probably, yeah, first and foremost our biggest opportunity.
Yeah, I can back that up myself, Donald. I mean, the customers that we have Grenham's bring to our farm absolutely love the traceability integrity system that we've got. They're very impressed by it, and allows a lot of marketing to go forward from that. So I think, yeah, most certainly, and it's got to keep advancing, obviously, as all technology does.
Great, and thank you. And Jack?
It is worth, I think, making sure that we don't create an auditor's picnic, right? So this traceability puts cost into the supply chain, then we've got it wrong. So we have to streamline all the existing reporting, make best use of relationships you've already got with your customers, and bundle it up with that rather than introducing new stuff and new cost and you know, new opportunities to have a distrust between the customers. So it's got to be simpler, right?
Great. Jack, thank you. David. Terry.
I'd just like to make a bit of point of order here. What we saw when a gentleman asked a difficult question about low export then was basically musical chairs, and effectively negating all these panel members here from giving their answers to that question. Which fine, Jason has to have that view, but let's hear what the other panels think about this issue of live export in Western Australia.
Noted, Terry. I was just trying to get the discussion as rich as it could be.
So I'll jump in again, Andrew. So I'll sort of trump you on it, Terry. It's not an environment to have what could potentially become a politicised conversation. So we can absolutely take up that discussion afterwards, which I'm more than happy to do, but it's not the environment to be doing that. So let's keep moving on with the stuff that the panellists are talking about.
Thank you, Jason. Thanks, Terry. David, you got a question over to my right.
Yeah, Trevor Caithness from Bairnsdale. I guess I'm looking for some comment here from our panel. It appears as though every commodity we produce within the red meat industry, we're aiming to hit a grid, and we have a grid price, and then we have reductions. Are we going to need to look at all of this upside down and actually start trying to advocate that we have a base price, and then as we hit certain criterias, whether it's within our sustainability or our eating qualities of our product, we actually go up the grid. We don't go down the grid. Just interested in your thoughts. I think it's something similar to what the American system may be.
I'll jump in and say that that's exactly my experience at the moment. My cattle that I sell hit a base price and then they do go up the grid. I think there's 3 steps that we've got. MSA plus 62, the sustainability and the auditing around GAP. So we do have the 3 step ups. That's my experience.
Thanks, Ian. Sarah?
Maybe I could just touch on that too, because I think the term value-based pricing has been around for a long time, but I think we're at a point at the moment where we now have the data and the technology that can pretty confidently give us really robust feedback on every carcass that's graded. For beef, it's been around for a long time with MSA. It's now the majority. It's the norm now to be MSA graded for beef, and we have eating quality data that's really robust. We now can get yield data And disease and defect data is starting to flow through now as well on carcasses. So together that's the combination of what is true carcass value. I think we can really start moving forward. It's who's going to take that first step to do that. There's already premiums out there for quality, no doubt. And what's just been released in the last 12 months is that system is now starting for sheep, for lambs. So MSA cut-space grading for lamb is now a reality. And so that you'll see that today too, but the technology is now available to be able to measure all of these things. And I'm giving plugs to lots of things around the hub today, but the other thing that's just been released just last week is my feedback. So we've had feedback for MSA for a long time and livestock data link, but it just makes so much sense to have one-stop shop for all carcass feedback that's going to join together all these pieces of information. So I think the time is right to exactly what your point there.
Thank you, Trevor. Brad. Oh, we got Mark.
Yeah, thanks, Ferg. Morning, everyone.
That's it on now.
Technology. Morning, everyone. My name's Mark Harvey-Sutton. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the Australian Livestock Exporters Council. I just heard a few questions about live sheep and the issue we're having there. You're absolutely right. It's a very challenging issue and one that's going to affect all of agriculture. But it's not MLA's role to talk politics. That's our job. And we're up the back there. We're there with Sheep Producers Australia as well, and we'd all be very keen to have a talk to you about it. And we're mounting a campaign at the moment to try and get that policy decision overturned. And if you want to hear a bit more about it, come and have a chat in the break. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mark. David, I think we've just got a question with you. And Brad, there's one just over here. Oh.
Yeah, hello. Scott Young, producer at Bland and also president of the VFF Livestock Group. Just wanted to ask a question then about that feedback and about that data that you're capturing. How long is it before we're going to get hook tracking within the lamb sector? But it's all great to have all this feedback and everything, but until we get individual animal feedback, we're hamstrung as producers on the ground. We don't know which of our animals or breeds is performing the best until we get that individual feedback. So it's great to do all this research on intramuscular fat and that, but unless we know which animals are doing that, we don't know.
Yeah, you're 100% correct in that to really realise the benefit of, in particular for sheep, so it's beef sorted for that, is the ability to assign that carcass data to individual animals too. So a critical part to that is whether it's through hook tracking or even individual carcass ticketing, we do need an enabler like that. And so it's probably an answer for the processors really on how they're tracking with that. But yeah, we're working with processors who are trying to implement all of those systems. I probably can't really answer very well the timeline on that, but we're certainly working with some really progressive processors who are really on board to make that happen and be a reality.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks. I think, Brad, we've got a question over to my left.
Hi, everyone. My name's Georgia Buckles from Next Gen Agri, and I'm also going to speak to you as a producer of merino and crops. Recently, I attended a carbon on-farm workshop by our local land care group and Cam Nicholson. I thought it was very interesting from a producer's perspective, but what my question is that is this new carbon calculator by the MLA a tool that we can use in the future for compliant recording of carbon and emissions on farm? Because the standards for recording carbon and your emissions seems to be changing constantly. Is this just an indicator tool for farmers, or is it something we can use in the future when all of this becomes?
Sure. So the carbon calculator, we've chosen to the source of data for the carbon calculator is the GAF tools that have been created by the University of Melbourne. And so we believe that they're the most credible and that the data has been validated to be an indicator, but potentially more than that too. So one of the other things that you might be able to find out about today is that the environmental credentials for grass-fed beef at the moment, hopefully we'll expand that platform where we'll be able to input data from the carbon calculator and be able to generate credentials that can then be shared up and down the supply chain with your permission or whoever's permission. And it could be to financial institutions, it could be to the retailers or the processors as well. So we're pretty confident that data is really robust and you'll be able to rely on that for a credentialing program. Yep.
Great, thank you, Sarah. And David, over to you.
Hi.
Is it long?
Hi, I'm Ali Hilly and I'm from Willow Grove. I'm a beef producer. My question may be a little bit too specific, but myself and another couple of producers in my area have been very involved in setting our business model up to produce cattle for the Greenham Never Ever project. And obviously that's involved some costs, and I can see the extrapolation to the carbon costs that will come in. What we're now finding is at the moment, Greenham are getting their cattle from elsewhere because it's cheaper at the moment, and we've got cattle that are finished and ready. We actually don't have that relationship and the ability to send them to where we had them set up for. We just can't book them in, and that's incredibly frustrating.
Well, there's a Greenham's representative here today.
There is, yes.
Yep.
So
might be able to hear.
we might point you in the direction of the Greenham's representative. I'm not. Yeah, if that's all right, we'll point you in the direction of the Greenham's representative later today. They can probably give you a far more robust answer than we possibly can. Brad.
Cliff Downey, seed stock producer 2 hours north of here. Firstly, thanks, Tom, for your real-world comments about the Bendigo sale yards. Sometimes it needs to come back to earth. I know that a lot of beef producers are working through high-end grid systems, etc., but 50% or close to still selling through sale yards. Recent figures seem to show. I've been organising a sale at a sale yard just recently for the best kind of Angus, red ones, and what we're finding at the end of most conversations is this talk about the woke left-wing conspiracy called climate change. I mean, that's where we are, I think. How can that change? How can you do something about it? What got my interest was Holly's comment of how she is working with through one of her companies with Nutrien. That's one way I can see that some of this information, some of this leverage can get to those everyday beef farmers, and wondered if you could expand a little bit on what's happening there, Holly.
Well, first I'll clarify. Part of the way, and I guess this is one of the benefits of being a cooperative, is that Fonterra has its own, so I said it was like Nutrien and like Elders, so Fonterra has its own, and actually Jack can probably jump in and help me as well, sort of organization called Farm Source. And so they both are, retailers and have the kind of cooperative stores, but also they have relationships with all of our dairy farmers who are part of the cooperative. So they're essentially advisors who work with all of the dairy farmers, and I guess there's always that balance between the role that the co-op plays as the customer of the farmers and the role they play behind the farm gate. Dairy farmers do not like us behind the farm gate, but obviously there's a whole range of compliance obligations on quality and farm practices. So we're really trying to shift that model so that Farm Source is an advisory group, and that they are, particularly now working with all of our, farmer shareholders in terms of, putting together plans for their farm specifically in terms of, how they can produce better quality, as well as reduce costs and emissions. You know, it's, I think someone said earlier in this panel that, you know, at the end of the day, this change has to be productive for farmers, because if we drive all the farmers out of the business, then we have no food, and that's not good for anyone, the retailers, anyone in the whole value chain. So, you know, we've got to continue to work at, you know, on profitable investments. Jack, I don't know if you want to talk about Fonterra at all.
Yeah, I mean, the Fonterra model is essentially our field team, you know, having a relationship with farmers, and you know, we do our best to make sure that that relationship is sort of trusted and that they can get good independent advice from someone they're selling product to, right? And that's a really important relationship. The Farm Source team, you know, engage regularly with farmers on doing that. But I think the question really is like, who can you trust, right? You've got a limited amount of bandwidth in your external engagement outside the farm. Who are the people that can bring you information that you would then, you know, happily consider that, and who are those that you go, actually, this isn't someone that I know or have an authentic voice, so you go, well, maybe they're not the people. And I think that's just, you know, your customer's your friend, right? Your customer, whoever it is, how do we build that stronger relationship to make sure that the information you're getting is, first of all, you know, correct and independent, but secondly, it's from someone that you know, you've got an ongoing relationship with.
Thank you. Tom?
I suppose the only comment I'd make, you know, by describing woke left wing, you know, they're our customers. You know, marketing's about doing what a consumer needs. If a consumer wants to buy carbon neutral, you know, sustainably grown meat, you know, see that as an opportunity. And I think, you know, we've got to be more tactful the way we take, you know, particularly lamb to the market. So I see opportunities, you know, so-called left wing. You know, there's a huge opportunity. Can we extract value? You know, that's going to be the ongoing opportunity. But yeah, certainly when I look at our customer, particularly in the States, there's such a diverse category. And I think brands is the answer. Different brands reflecting different values and getting to the market.
Thank you, Tom. We've probably got time for one more question. So David, I'm going to go to you. I'll come back to you later, Terry. Just in the interest of moving things along, we're getting up against it now. So last question here, over to you, sir.
Thank you. John Buxton, Stratford, East Gippsland. Sustainability for me is all about money, nothing else. If I can't pay the bills, I'm not sustainable. What can we do to drive up atmospheric CO2, because that'll drive crop yield and productivity for me? I'm going to go so far as to make a prediction here. The net zero agenda is going to fail, and it's going to fail drastically. Why? The whole thing's based on a lie. It is impossible for CO2 to generate heat. And I'm staggered that so many supposedly intelligent people have been so taken in. It's an agenda that's been driven by what I call the deep green left. It's got absolutely nothing to do with protecting the environment, nothing at all. It's about driving up the cost of doing business and impinging the ability of private enterprise to make a living. Pure and simple. I do have a question for MLA. Can you get me a DNA sire test that only costs $1 a pop? Would unlock, you know, I think a DNA sire test at the moment, Tom Bull, you probably know, $40 a pop or thereabouts. And when lambs are only bringing $80, it's not even worth considering. But a DNA sire test in a commercial flock would unlock huge value in my flock for me. Can you put your mind to that one, please?
Jason, would you like to respond?
Thanks. So I think John's demonstrating is that we have a broad range of views on some of these issues. And I think in all seriousness about the sustainability piece, what you're highlighting is the challenge where we don't know everything, and there's a lot of definitive statements get made that don't necessarily have all the information. The broader challenge we have is the potential for policy and requirements that will potentially drive and create risk for our industry. So the benefit we've got is that as an industry, the red meat industry in Australia has been looking at this issue for quite some time, and because we've been more proactive and in front of it, largely further in front of the conversation than most others, the things we've been able to focus on that help answer the questions that people have around the livestock sector's interaction with the environment are also connected to productivity. I think Tom made a really good point. You can't differentiate between, or you can't separate between sustainability and profitability. And I think that's the same sort of point you're making. We've got to be driving the things that we do by along with our productivity and profitability. So that's certainly a focus for us. We'd all love the tests, or we'd all love the technological solutions that help us make better management decisions to be cheaper. DNA technology's exponentially cheaper than what it used to be. I'm not sure it's going to get to $1, but the solutions that are being provided in that space are certainly getting better and better and better. And it's what it's a really good example of is a technology that 10 or 15 years seemed like it was completely out of reach of any commercial operator to make a decision with. We're now having a discussion about price. So I think it's a really good demonstration of how technological solutions come along that to start with they seem quite unrealistic, but as they progress very quickly over time we start finding ways to use them in a very practical way. So I think what we've got an opportunity with today is the demonstration of a whole range of things that we're investing in on behalf of the industry and producers to help us be more profitable and productive, help us have more information, help us understand that information better, and really grateful for the opportunity to engage with everybody. So thanks,
I'll make one comment.
Sure, Tom. Last comment.
And it's always an interesting debate. As a producer, it doesn't matter what we think. It matters what our customers think. And our customers think it's a thing. So we can sit here, with our own personal views, or we can sit here and look at our customer. And I think, the cold, hard light of day, again, when I go to Sydney and talk to a lot of my urban friends, they are boasting about meat-free Mondays and stuff. They think, forming that link. So, there's no doubt, our customers think it's a big issue. And failure to deliver change, I can't see our industry is going to be prosperous in 20 years, irrespective of, as farmers, what we think.
Thank you, Tom. Ladies and gents, thank you for all of your questions, and my sincere apologies that we have not had time to go through all of them. That doesn't mean we can't be asking them today. The panel will certainly be around for the rest of the day, as will the MLA team, so they're going to be spread around with MLA shirts on. Please make sure that you take the time to walk around, and if you've got questions, please don't hesitate to come up and ask us those. So if you'd put your hands together and give some thanks to our panel, I'll relieve them from duties on stage. Thank you, Ian. May you continue to move forward. I love your attitude about learning and continuing to improve your business. Tom, who's single-handedly making sheep farming sexy again. Thank you, Tom. And particularly thanks to Holly, both for coming here today, but also for being in the back seat of my car as we were driving to the showgrounds today, because I had a VIP in the back and I got a better parking space than all of you. Thank you, panel.